back to another episode of Jock Talk. We're here to preview the Sunday slate for week 2. But first, just a little cleanup from Thursday night football last night. We saw the Eagles beat the Vikings. But Trone, any further thoughts you have from that game?
Yeah, it was a fun one in the markets last night on Jock Market. It was a lot of big swings because that game started out real ugly last night. Highlighted by Alexander Mattison, who is looking like a major bust as an RB1. If you bought shares of Madison at open, you were down 67% by the end of the game. On the other side of the ball, though, DeAndre Swift coming out party, right? I mean, 160 something yards on the ground. He gave you a 210% ROI last night, and then looking like primetime still has Kirk Cousins' number, despite him having what looked like a pretty stellar game. I thought, he returned 118% for you in our markets last night. I think, it's just for some reason he just can't get over the hump in prime time. But either way, great game from Kirk Cousins. Clearly has a good connection, carrying over from last year with TJ Hawkinson, who had 2 touchdowns last night, returned 100% in our markets. Then on the other side of the ball, passing wise for Philly, I'm not sure about you, Coleman. The Philly passing game could be seeing some regression this year. Devonta Smith obviously had a big night. However, in our markets, he actually returned a negative ROI, which I found interesting. I mean, his open price was $981, which was a pre-rank of 5th. He ended up finishing one shy of that in 6th. So if you bought shares at $981, he only paid out $8. So not a terrible loss from an ROI standpoint at 18.5%, but still, had a good game. The big disappointment on the Philly passing game was AJ Brown. Definitely a woulda, coulda, shoulda type of night for him. After he kind of threw a tantrum on the sideline after not being really thrown to all game, they targeted him pretty heavily late in the game. Almost had 2 touchdown passes, or touchdown receptions, I should say. One was called back on a holding penalty, and the other one was a debatable pass interference, kind of bang bang. Probably shouldn't have been called, but definitely could have been. So his open price was $11.37 in our markets, which was a pre-rank of 4. He ended up finishing all the way down in 10th, with a $4 per share payout. So that was a loss of about 65%. So yeah, look, I think it's reasonable with this Philly passing game to expect some regression from last year. I think this is going to be a situation where really one guy in the receiving game has a good game each week. So it may be just best to, if you want a piece of the Philly passing game, just to pay up for Jalen Hurts and not have to worry about who the guy of the week is going to be, especially on Jock Market, where you don't have to worry about large field correlation or anything like that. And that's enough about Thursday night. I thought it was a really exciting game that started out super ugly, but we're going to go through this Sunday slate here, Coleman. We're going to pick out. I know we both have a bunch of pick'em lines that we like. So we're going to go through those, and we're also going to take a look at how those players stack up and what kind of values they might be in our markets to see where we can extrapolate some value out from in those Jock Market streets this week. So Coleman, I'll kick it over to you. What is the first pick'em line that you wanted to highlight this week?
My first one is going to be Romeo Doubs. I'm basing this on the fact that Christian Watson will not be playing on Sunday, and Doubs looked like the number 1 receiver last week versus the Bears. I mean, a lot of players on the Packers looked great versus the Bears, but so I got to see them versus another team. But I think Love has a connection there. He's ranked in our markets as 97th right now, which is probably going to mean he's going to be trading around $2, maybe even $1 per share on Sunday. I just think there's so much value there. We saw last week he had 2 touchdowns, which if you had him then was a giant spike in value. I'm just betting on him being the number 1 receiver this week. I think even if he gets only a few targets, they're going to be effective and valuable ones. So yeah, Romeo Doubs, buy for sure. And then I'm also going to be on the over in his receiving yards at 37.5.
Yep. Yeah. I look at that price, the downside is so minimal. The lowest he can be is $1 per share. So if you're getting it anywhere close to that, he certainly has the ceiling to pay off in a big way. So I like that call. My first one is going to be Ramondre Stevenson over 50.5 rushing yards. I've been projected for closer to 60. So there's a nice delta there. Going up against the Dolphins. The Dolphins gave up well over 200 yards. I think it was closer to 230 yards against the Chargers last week. I expect Belichick to want to slow this game down so Tyreek, Tyreek and Waddle and Tua don't go off for almost 500 passing yards again. So I think Ramondre is a good bet here. His pre-rank in our markets is 34, which comes out to about a $5 per share payout. At those prices, I'm buying. But
I love that pick.
Yeah, Coleman, what's the next one you got?
Yes, I'll continue with another Patriot. Hunter Henry will be my next buy. I'm also going to take the over on his receiving yards at 34. Like Dobbs, he is closer to the hundreds in his market ranking. He's at 108th, which again is a projected share price around $1 or $2. I think we lost sight of this last year because that Patriots offense was so bad. But Hunter Henry is really one of Mac Jones' favorite targets. He certainly is a focal point of the Patriots offense. I think last week we're seeing we're still so early in the season that the stink of that Patriots offense from last year is still showing in fantasy in terms of fantasy value for these Patriots receivers. I think with the fact that he's not in the top 100 just shows that there's so much upside there for him. If he even gets a touchdown, that's a major value payout for you. So yeah, I'm going to say Hunter Henry as just another favorite of Mac Jones. Being a centerpiece in that offense, certainly a buy there.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in the preseason, Coleman, didn't we? Where the Patriots were likely going to be early season values. There was a couple of teams I know we talked about just based off of kind of like you said it perfectly, the stink of last year. So I think before the market really adjusts, it's a good time to be in on Patriots for sure. I'll jump into the next one. I like Christian McCaffrey over 65 rushing yards. Projected over 70 for me. So I think that's an easy one right there if you're looking at nothing else. But aside from that, we had vintage CMC kind of Carolina Panthers usage last week in a lot of ways. Part of that's due to Elijah Mitchell being banged up all preseason and them easing him back in. But looking at this week, I don't see, I think that usage will continue for at least this week. The Rams allowed, Kenneth Walker to have a pretty efficient week last week. He didn't stack up a ton of yards because, I think it was mostly due to game script, but still, over 5.3 yards per carry. And look, you're going to have to pay out for McCaffrey. His pre-rank is 6, but, I think if you've been paying any attention to fantasy football at all over the past several years, even at the 6th highest priced player, he can easily pay off for you. At sixth overall, you're paying, you're getting $14 a share. If you're seeing him price under that, I'm perfectly fine buying.
Great pick. I will continue with my last buy, and it's gonna be Calvin Ridley. I love his receiving prop at 69 yards. They're certainly going to go over on that. Definitely going to be paying a little bit more of a premium this time around compared to my last two picks. He's ranked 25th in our market right now, which means he's going to be trading about a little over 650. But he's on a mission this year to be probably a top 5 receiver in the league. And he certainly has all the tools to do it. His speed is, there's not many guys that have his speed. And the Chiefs secondary is young and gave up some big plays to the Lions last week. Josh Reynolds had a great day. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a great day. I expect this game to be more of a shootout. Jacksonville throws a lot, and the Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to have to do the same, I think. So I expect Ridley to be the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville this week. I project a big week from him.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, Ridley looked like he hadn't lost a step, huh? That was, I mean, I've always been a Calvin Ridley fan. I think after reading his article in The Athletic, I got more in on him about kind of what was going on off the field with him over the last couple of years. Excited to see him back and really in prime Ridley form. So I'll dive into my next one. I've got my last over here before we dive into some unders. I've got Bijan Robinson over 54.5 rushing yards. I have him projected for closer to 70. He had over this last week on only 10 carries. I think his utilization is going to go up each and every week. I mean, look, on an offense like this that, the Falcons only passed 18 times last week. I don't expect that to change, but I do expect Bijan's utilization to go up. The Falcons have every incentive to do that. And look, in our markets, his pre-rank is 46. That's a projected payout of $3.60. I mean, if he's anywhere near that number, buy.
Well, that pick. Well, let's get into some shorts to wrap up the show. My first short of the week is going to be Dak Prescott. I'm also going to be taking the under on his completions at 19.5. The Giants got stomped last week, but it wasn't because of Dak. Dak only finished 13 for 24 with 123 yards last week. He has too good of offense around him to be that inefficient and that ineffective. The Jets are 10 times better in their secondary, and a mixture of that with the Jets front seven means I think Dak is going to be an even worse game. The over, just to give you a prediction of where this game's going to go, the over-under is totaled at 39.5 for this game. One of the lower over-unders on the week. A lot of that could be due to Zach Wilson, but we saw last week that this Cowboys offense is not where it needs to be yet. And I think Dak is going to have a less than stellar game this week because of it.
I think that's a really good pick. I think Dak can not get you there in a couple of different ways. Number one, he may not just have to do anything, because that defense, we saw what it did to the Giants. I can only imagine what it's going to do to Zach Wilson. So that's one way. And yeah, I just think this game is going to be, I don't think they're going to have to use Dak a whole lot. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Even if Wilson has a decent game and the defense for Dallas isn't as great, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough for Dak to pay off for you. But yeah, it's a good call there. My first short is James Conner at under 64.5 rushing yards. I have him projected around 58. Look, both of these teams in this game played relatively slow last week. This matchup against the Giants is another game with an under 40 point total at 39. And look, his pre-rank is 33, which is one spot above Ramondre Stevenson. With these two guys right next to each other, I mean, that's not even close for me. If you see Ramondre and Connor at similar prices, I'd be buying Ramondre and shorting James Conner at roughly a $5 per share price.
My last short of the week is someone that was number one in our markets last week, Tyreek Hill. This is definitely one of those situations where you are shorting a player that is at his peak, and I believe Tyreek Hill has reached his peak for this early in the season. Bill Belichick is just not going to allow a receiver to have over 200 yards in the game. Just not going to happen. And just to give you a little nugget for you, Jonathan Jones has been the main shadow of Tyreek Hill since 2018. In those games, Tyreek Hill has 11 receptions, 143 yards, and has led to one interception. The QB passer rating total.
Woo! I like it.
I think it's good. I think he has the blueprint on how to guard Tyreek Hill. So if you're going to short him, I love the value. He's ranked 14th in our markets right now. And his longest reception is at 27 yards. I can't see Bill allowing something like that to happen. I am shorting Tyreek Hill this week.
Bringing the spice. I like it. My last short of the week is far less spicy. It's Isaiah Pacheco under 10 rushing attempts, 10.5 rushing attempts. I have him projected for closer to 8. Last week we saw him have 8 rushing attempts, 23 yards, 2.9 yards per carry. Like, clearly not ideal. I have a feeling we get the shootout we've been hoping for this week versus the Jags, which would not be a good game script for Isaiah Pacheco in the run game. I think in a more run-friendly environment last week, we saw him only with a 47% snap share. So this is clearly still a 3-back committee, but I don't see this being a great week for Isaiah Pacheco. I'm perfectly fine just avoiding him in the markets.
All right, well, that concludes it for our buys and shorts for the week. We have a good mixture of receivers and running backs to look for. I'm just going to quickly go through my buys and shorts again. Remember, we have Romeo Doubs in the buy list, as well as Hunter Henry and Calvin Ridley. My shorts are going to be Dak Prescott and Tyreek Hill. Trone, what are your buys and shorts again?
My buy of the week's Ramondre Stevenson, taking the over on 50.5 rushing yards, buying in the $5 a share range. Christian McCaffrey, I'm taking the over on 65 rushing yards. I'm paying up for him in the markets too, whatever he's priced at. Probably in the $14 range. I'm okay with that. Bijan over 54.5 rushing yards, 54 and a half rushing yards. And I'm buying him in the markets if he's down in the 3.5, 4, even $5 range. I think that's a good buy. I'm taking the under and shorting James Conner under 64 and a half rushing yards line. And I think at the same pre-rank as Ramondre Stevenson, I think he's a great short. And then I'm going under Isaiah Pacheco, 10 and a half rushing attempts. And I'm probably just avoiding him in the markets. I think he's going to be priced too far down, but I don't see there's a ceiling there that's going to really hurt you.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We will get back to you on Monday for results from the weekend and preview Monday Night Football. Good luck.
Awesome. Good luck this week. Take care.